Now, we read today that tourism will be hit terribly hard this year, with visitors to this country likely to be down 10 to 15%. That's up to 1.5 million tourists not turning up in our country. That'll be a bigger hit to the tourism sector than 9/11 was. And it's not just the coronavirus, of course. The publicity around the bushfires has been a big part of the problem. Hardly surprising, actually, when, as I've been pointing out all summer, so many erroneous and alarmist claims about conditions or fires being unprecedented, creating false impressions.
Federal Greens MP Adam Bandt is copping some flack on Twitter this morning, but there are a lot of climate change experts that are saying this. He says, just to recap, today's fires are unprecedented. Fires in Queensland earlier this year were unprecedented. Townsville flood was unprecedented. The Central Queensland fires last year were unprecedented. This is his tweet. The drought is unprecedented. It is an emergency.
Yes, it's been unprecedented. The conditions we've seen here on the mid-north coast today, the worst in at least 20 years.
And all this fed overseas coverage, which, if anything, was even more over the top.
And 14 million acres lost, homes destroyed, and now the overwhelming toll on wildlife. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z is in Australia tonight.
Tonight, no end in sight to the unprecedented wildfires consuming Australia.
Now, as you know, these were terrible and tragic fires, certainly the most damaging New South Wales has had, and we know so many communities and families were hit hard, but they were not unprecedented, not the worst we've had, and certainly didn't turn the whole country into a disaster zone the way some maps circulated overseas suggested. No wonder tourists cancelled their trips. And when it comes to climate alarmism, the damage goes beyond fires. For years, the fear-mongering has talked down the Great Barrier Reef, one of our greatest tourism assets.
We've got the Great Barrier Reef that's on the brink of collapse.
The world will be sadly looking at us saying, what are we doing to the Great Barrier Reef?
You think it's funny that our oceans are dying? Do you think it's funny?
Why bother to come to Australia and see the reef when you hear that sort of publicity? And here's the Guardian Australia's latest, saying that global warming has made it so hot here that it's killing people.
The land is so burnt, you can't walk anymore, it's too hot.
Too hot. They're going out getting bush tucker, go out hunting and doing all that stuff, but they can't do it anymore because it's too hot.
Yet, as many of us know and studies have repeatedly shown, such as this one conducted in Australia, most deaths from extreme weather come from the cold. In this case, 61.4% of Australian temperature-related deaths, with 28% triggered by variability and just 10.6% coming from the heat. Yep, there's not much we can do about the coronavirus, but otherwise, if we want people to come to this country as tourists, best not to allow our climate activism to scare them off. I mean, if you tell people that the whole country's on fire, that the place is a climate change catastrophe and that it's so hot you might die, can you really blame tourists for not turning up? And if you tell them lies about the Great Barrier Reef being dead, why would they buy a ticket? Just another way the climate alarmists are hurting this country.